All right. Welcome. I am going to continue on with section 5.2, and this is a monster section. In fact, I'm going to break it up into like 4 parts here, just because it throws so much at you, and I just want to make sure that we understand each new concept as it comes. And so it's going to start off with a lot of new vocab terms discussing what determines the expression of traits. And then part 2, we'll talk about how inheritance can be modeled using something called a Punnett square. And I got a few different activities associated with that. And then we'll also talk about another way inheritance can be modeled using a pedigree. And then we'll wrap up the section talking about how patterns of inheritance that don't really follow Mendel's model of either this or that. So remember with Gregor Mendel and his pea plants, he studied traits that were either this or that. So it was either a purple flowered or a white flower, short, tall, yellow seed, green seed, wrinkle seed, or round seed. It was either this or that. There was no mix in between. And we have found that in some species, they don't follow Mendel's model. So we'll talk about some exceptions there. So first off, what controls traits? So remember, traits are characteristics that are found on an organism. And the bottom line is that these traits are found or controlled by chromosomes, the DNA. So remember, inside each cell of a eukaryotic organism is a nucleus that contains chromosomes. And Mendel didn't know anything about chromosomes in the 1850s. He called chromosomes factors, okay? That there were 2 factors involved for the trait being shown in that pea plant. And so Mendel's factors are parts of chromosomes, and that each cell in offspring contains chromosomes from each parent, hence the 2 factors, one from mom, one from dad. So on chromosomes, we find genes, okay? So sections of chromosomes that have genetic information for that one trait. So examples of a gene, that codes for a certain trait like eye color, height, earlobes. There's over 20,000 genes in the human genome alone. Okay, so lots of different traits in our genome. Different forms of a gene are called alleles. Okay, so for example, the gene is eye color. Alleles, the different forms of eye color, could be blue, brown, green, hazel, violet, whatever. Okay, here's another example. Gene flower color. The alleles, purple or white. So different forms of a gene are called alleles. So gene is like the traits, and alleles are the different forms of that trait. So how a trait appears or expressed in an organism is called the phenotype. Okay, phenotypes are what you can see on the organism. So for example, let's just say that brown eyes, that's a trait that you can see, but you can't tell if that person is like 2 big B's for brown, like, purebred brown, or maybe they're hybrid. Okay, so phenotype is like the trait you can see. So 2 alleles that control the phenotype we call the genotype. And we use letters to represent dominant alleles. So remember, if you have the dominant allele, you will exhibit that trait. Big T, big W, big W, big C, big B, big B. Lowercase letters represent recessive alleles. Okay, so little t, little w, little c, little b, little b. And so in order for you to have the dominant trait, and it usually tells you when it might say brown eyes are dominant over blue eyes, that in order for you to have that dominant trait, you just need 1 uppercase letter. Okay, so to be brown eye, you could be, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to grab a marker. So if you wanted to be brown eyes, you could be big B for that 100% purebred, or, you could be big B, little b. But as long as you have the big B, then you will show the dominant trait. In order for you to show the recessive traits, okay, you need to have 2 lowercase letters. So if you want to be blue-eyed, that means you got 2 lowercase letters here. Okay, two blue eye alleles, if you will. So I know this picture is kind of blurry, but the phenotype is what you can see. You can see they have blue eyes, okay? But you don't see letters on them, right? The genotype are the letters, the alleles that they have. So over here with brown eyes, you can see that they have brown eyes, but their genotype, you can't tell by looking at them if they're big B, little b, or big B, big B. So phenotype you can physically see, and genotype, you're looking at their letters, their alleles. So when two alleles are the same, we say that genotype is homozygous. So they might say homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive, but homo means that the letters will be the same. Okay, and then you have to look at the word after that. Is it dominant? Hey, if it's dominant, then they're going to be two uppercase letters. If it's recessive, it's going to be two lowercase letters. When two alleles are different, then the genotype is called heterozygous. Okay, so you have one of each, a big B and a little b. So they just might say, someone is heterozygous for brown eyes. Okay, what's that going to look like? Well, because they say heterozygous, it's going to be big B, little b, or whatever letter they're going to use to determine brown eyes. So let's practice using these terms here. You are studying pea shape. Round pea plants are dominant. Okay, so round is dominant over wrinkled pea plants. Use the letter R for your alleles. All right, I actually think I can just type this here. Okay, what are the phenotypes? So phenotypes are what you can physically see. Well, you can see if they are round or wrinkled. So those are the phenotypes that we are looking at, round or wrinkled. Okay, I would also accept pea shape as well. I guess that's, that works. What are the genotypes for round pea plants? Okay, so round is dominant. That means we're going to have capital letters, and it says use the letter R for your alleles. So you could be big R, or big R, little r. Which one's homozygous? Big R, big R. Which one's heterozygous? Hetero means one of each, big R, little r. What is the genotype? Okay, genotype means letters for wrinkled pea plants. So what does it take to be wrinkled? Well, wrinkled is recessive, and in order to show the recessive trait, you need two lowercase letters. So it's going to be little r, little r. Is it homozygous or heterozygous? Well, the letters are the same homo, so it's going to be homozygous. You are studying pea color. Purple pea plants are dominant over white pea plants. Use the letter P for your alleles. What are the phenotypes? Phenotypes means what can you physically see? Well, we can see if they are purple or white. What are the genotypes for purple pea plants? Purple pea plants are dominant. So that means dominant's going to have the capital letter. So you could be big P, or big P, little p. Which one's homozygous? Homozygous means the same. So big P, those letters are the same. Heterozygous, hetero means different, big P, little p. What is the genotype for white pea plants? Little p, little p. Okay, so white is recessive. The only way you can show the recessive trait is to have two lowercase letters. Is it homozygous or heterozygous? And that will be homozygous because the letters are the same. All right, I got one more here. Okay. You are studying eye color in fruit flies. White eyes are recessive. White eyes are recessive to red eyes. Use the letter R for your alleles. What are the phenotypes? All right, so we are looking at eye color in fruit flies, and they can be, looks like white eyes or red. What are the genotypes for red eyes? White eyes are recessive, so white is recessive to red eyes. Red eyes are dominant, so red means big R, or big R, little r. Which one is homozygous? Big R. Which one is heterozygous? Big R, little r. What is the genotype for white eyes? Whoops. Little r. Is it homozygous or heterozygous? Well, two of the same small letters here, homozygous. Okay, so that's it for the first part of section 5.2.